Good morning, everybody. I hope you had a really nice weekend. I'm super excited because we're starting a new unit that's going to carry us through the next couple of weeks, and it's about poetry. And I really love poetry. I'm so excited to do this with you. I think sometimes people think that poetry is a bit boring or a bit dry or really difficult, but it's not, and I'm so excited to show you a little bit of poetry that's a lot more fun. So let's get going with this PowerPoint. I will also post the PowerPoint video free so that you can perusal it and you won't have my little face yapping at you. Okay, so Poetry 101, our very first form of poetry is called found poetry, and it's really cool. So found poetry, it's a really awesome type of poetry, partly because it's really free. You can really do what you want with it, whereas lots of types of poetry have really strict rules that you have to follow. Found poetry is a little bit more forgiving. I selected it as our first form, A, because it's pretty relaxed, and also B, because it's really fun, and C, it's pretty easy. So as I mentioned, throughout the week we'll get into some more sort of technical, trickier types of poetry, but we're going to start with found poetry because it's a nice one. Okay, so the explanation, what found poetry is it's sort of this idea that there's words all throughout our world. There's words everywhere you look, and it's sort of taking those words from different places in our world and combining them in new ways to create really fun, original poems, okay? It's awesome. I'm so excited. Okay, so these are the rules of found poetry, and even though it's pretty easy breezy, there still have to be some rules. So the rules are, you have to choose a word pool, and a word pool is sort of a place where you've decided you're going to go to get all of your different phrases and words for your poem, okay? So examples of word pools are things like cereal boxes or food boxes, books that you've read or books that you like, books that are just around you on a bookshelf, YouTube videos, the titles of YouTube videos even, video game rules, graphic novels, text messages that you've received. You can take text messages that you've gotten and you can turn these into a found poem, okay? And I'm sorry because I realized that I've been staring at myself talking instead of at the camera. It's weird. It's something to get used to. Okay, so next one. The rules of found poetry. The next rule is that you have to choose a selection method. So a selection method is a predetermined, which means you decide your selection method before you start writing the poem. So it's a predetermined way that you're going to select the words and phrases that you're going to use in your poem, okay? So some examples of selection methods are things like using the title of every third book on your bookshelf, or using the first 3 words from the last 10 text messages that you received from friends, or using the first sentence of 5 YouTube videos in like a YouTube video stream. Anything. For found poetry, the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want. But whatever system you choose, you have to stick with it. Okay? That's the trickiest bit. So the very last rule about found poetry, my favorite rule, is that you have to share your found poems for them to really live, for them to really have a life. You have to share them and you have to read them out loud, okay? So this is going to happen at our very first ever poetry circle, our e-learning poetry circle. I'm sure that you remember we had a couple of literature circles in our classroom where everybody had something and had a bit of a chance to read it. So found poems are such an awesome way to start because they're usually silly, they're usually quite fun, and it takes a little bit of the pressure away from sharing because they're not even your words. You just went out and found them and put them together this way. So it's a really nice, easy breezy thing to share at our first ever poetry circle. Okay, that's going to be at 1 p.m. today. It is a mandatory class meeting. For this first one, if you don't feel ready to share, that's okay. Okay? I'll look in the camera when I say it. If you don't feel ready to share, that's okay, but I do require that you show up. Okay? You have to be there, listen to the poems that your classmates made, and maybe once you start to hear a couple, you'll think, oh, that's pretty fun. I'm okay to share mine. Okay? So that's at 1 p.m. today. Okay, so are you ready for an example? I wrote you one. It's okay. It's okay. So this is how I did it. My word pool, I went through a few good books I've read since being in the UAE. Okay? So, boom. I got this one. I have this one. I have this one. I have this one. Do you remember that one? Yeah, took one from there. And I have this one. Okay, oh, nope, I lied. I didn't use that last one. My selection method was taking the second sentence of the second and fifth chapter in each book. Okay, that's a tricky one. I took the second sentence from the second chapter of every book and the fifth chapter of every book. And then I plunked them together into a bunch of lines, and I just saw what I got. That's how found poetry works. So I'm going to read you mine. It's very poetic. Locker inspection. Kenneth had been notified by telephone. It didn't seem real. You have shown yourself to be barbaric and ruthless. At around the same time, several peculiar incidents happened. There was some laughter. My jacket is superior to yours by all reasonable criteria. The dilemma was obvious. Oh, it's fabulous! Even if it doesn't make sense, and sometimes they don't, it's still fabulous. Sometimes they turn out amazing, and you think, wow, that really sounds like a real poem. I can't believe I just kind of nabbed that from places. Sometimes they turn out kind of silly. It doesn't matter. Whatever you get is what you get. This is our first poem, and I need you to give it a shot, okay? Please also remember, we snap during our poetry circles, so be ready. Okay, so it's time to try it out yourself. I have a couple of additional reminders for you. 1, all of your poems must be school appropriate. So if there's some language or anything like that that you come across that you think, oh, I can't actually use that in school, then you'll have to change either your word pool or your selection method to avoid that, because it's not appropriate to bring things like that to our classroom. Number 2, all poems must have a clear word pool. So you need to be able to come to our poetry circle and explain what your word pool was, where you got your words from. Number 3, all poems must have a clear selection method. So the same thing, when you come to our poetry circle, be ready to explain what your method was for selecting your 8 to 10 lines of poetry. And, oh, there we go. Number 4, all poems must be 8 to 10 lines long, okay? So your assignment is to create 2 to 3 found poems using different word pools and different selection methods, okay? You can't use the same word pool. You can't use the same selection method twice. You're going to be ready to share one, your favorite one, at our poetry circle at 1 p.m. today. And please be ready to finger snap. Because if you remember, that's how we do it in literary circles. Okay? Okay, that's it. Good luck, everybody. I'm so excited to hear your poems. And remember, you must be present at the poetry circle. But if you are not quite ready to share one of your poems, that's okay. Come, listen to classmates, and maybe you'll be inspired when you get there. Okay? All right, everybody. Good luck. Have a good day. Ooh, I have to figure out how to turn my little video off still. Here we go. Okay. Enjoy.